Good. That was quick. They made some good improvements to this little box here. We're about 17 minutes a little behind because this freaking box was updating, but I guess it was worth it because it adds some pretty nice features. I can also now see your guys' comments right as you guys comment on my little box here. For those watching, I'm going to show you the little box I have. It's called the YOLO box here. I'm pointing to it here. This is my little setup. And so, yeah, we're good. Hello, guys. Welcome back. We haven't done this in a while. Just all the regulars today. We got Courtney, we got Desmond, and we got Hunter. We're good to go. So, hi. What's up, guys?
What's up, Lloyd?
Oh, it's not public. Okay, my wife is telling me that we're not public again. Man, this doesn't... Let me just change this. Give me one sec. And then change it.
Don't forget to post in the Lip Service podcast group.
I should. Hold on. You sure it's not public, babe? You said, oh, you're right. It's
well,
just
people are commenting in the chat already. So
got it. Okay. Colin says we look good. I can see it here. And then there's Brian. What up, Lloyd? Got it. All right. What's up, Brian? My VIP member here. Okay. Obviously, you know what we're about. We're about election. We're about politics. Today's I want to say it's a special day, but it really isn't. It's a normal day. We just have sort of a conclusion to, I don't want to call it a 4-year wrap up, but, it's been a pretty tumultuous, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know how to word it, but obviously this was a very important election for some people. A lot of dogs in the fight. Most people ever voted in the United States. Joe Biden, 71 million. Trump got 68 million. I think that's the highest turnout ever. So clearly people thought this was an important election. And we're just kind of here. We're just going to go over like what that means, what that looks like, the process going forward, all that kind of stuff. So you guys have any, surface level opening thoughts about this?
I think that the fact that there was a high amount of turnout shows how much the media has infected our lives, man. And we're always on our phones. And like 4 years ago, it started. You could see it start when we would start, looking at our phones. We saw Donald Trump. It gave a candidate that was an outsider a chance to get in. And the media started realizing it over the past few years. They've really found a way to like push into our phones and our social media and all that. And I think for better or for worse, it might be better, it might be worse. But there's way more awareness of what's going on politically and way more people that have an opinion that is strong about what's going on.
Agreed.
I think one of the biggest things on this is polls, right? Let's look at the polls. Let's look at prior to 2016, they were very, very accurate. Very accurate polls. 2016 and 2020, horribly inaccurate. Why is that? What's the deal with this?
The polling industry is dead. I might do a specific episode on this, by the way, on my podcast, because the polling industry is absolutely dead, and we don't even need to talk about them anymore. They've, become irrelevant, and they should go in the dustbin of history.
What Brian says too. Yeah, like polling, man. Like, I just don't get how you go from, like so accurate. We were so reliable with the polls to like nothing. You cannot rely on them in any way. We didn't see Georgia. We didn't see Arizona. Obviously, some of the states like the South, California, New York, we knew that was going to happen, but like. They were just so inaccurate.
Hold on now. I predicted Arizona in my election video that no one watched, by the way. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would like to interject, Desmond. I did watch it.
Thank you.
I did watch it too, by the way.
I actually don't know if I did. I don't remember. I might have watched part of it. I don't
Terrible
remember,
friend.
I only watched like the last 6 minutes, though. I watched like 6 minutes so I could see all your predictions. I didn't watch the whole thing.
But you saw that Arizona was blue.
Yes, I saw that you called that.
Yeah, I thought that we were going to get the Senate, but I wasn't completely sold on the presidency, so that was actually one of the ones I was wrong about.
Hey, you know what? I do want to say this about the polls really quick. I think that when it comes to the polls, the reason why they're so off, which is probably because of Donald Trump, with the fact that he's told everyone who supports him for years now that all the news media that does not, post nice things about him is fake news. And so I'm sure when ABC or CBS or CNN calls these people, they're like, click.
I talked to one of my conservative friends in Florida, actually, and he he said that people don't take the poll seriously. Like Trump voters just don't take the poll seriously. Like, why would you do polling? The media has really biased for liberals for a long time, and so why would you take these polls seriously? Why would you especially reach out for these polls? You're not going to go out and take them, So it's not only is it inaccurate from the sense that people they're far more vocal and it's far easier to just take a poll than to vote, but it's also that, like, if you're a conservative, you feel like I don't want to talk to anyone, but you probably feel like the polls are biased anyway, and you're not going to take them seriously. So
here's another thing about that is that I think that a lot of the pollsters are actually getting mostly people from big cities. If you notice the map in any state, the big cities, huge blue area around them, the rest of it, red. And I think that there's people that we don't realize that don't have cell phones. They're not getting these calls. My father and mother-in-law, they have cell phones, but I doubt they're on any list to be called. And there's a ton of people that live out in these places, like places you don't even know about in Montana, probably, like Broadus and Volberg. If you go through Volberg, your phone will tell you you're now entering Volberg, and then like 3 seconds later, your phone's like, you're now leaving Volberg, and you're like, where was it? Where the hell was this map?
it doesn't exist.
There's all these places out in the middle of nowhere that they're not capturing the people that are out there. They're just capturing the cities, and the cities are hugely Democratic, and that's maybe not, but I think there might be a chance that you end up with a 15-point advantage instead of a 2-point advantage. That's a huge difference in these
Massive
polls.
difference.
Yeah, I mean, ABC had a poll come out like a few days before the election that said that Biden was up by 17 in Wisconsin. Like, they should never do polls again. Like, they should be done. Like, they can find another job somewhere else doing something else. Obviously, they're terrible at what they do.
I agree. And then polls are also, I guess, there's a lot of bias to who actually does polls. Most people are very passionate and not disimpassioned people. So when you go to big cities, sure, there are plenty of Republicans there, but since they're so, like, disenchanted with the media, they're not going to do it. So even if they are the more passionate ones who are more likely to do it, now they're not doing polls anymore, and only the Democrats are continuing to do them, and I think that might have an effect too.
Right.
Question: do you think, like, obviously we've addressed like the sort of systemic nature of polls. What about just like Donald Trump? Like, he was just a very unique candidate. It was completely different from pretty much anything we've ever seen before. Do you think that is part of the reason polls are inaccurate? Just the fact that, like, we've just never seen a candidate like him before, and so supporting people that support him, that's just never been seen before. Is that part of it? Maybe in 2024, which I don't think he'll run again, maybe we won't have this problem again because we won't have a candidate like Donald Trump. Is that something that's possible?
I think no. I think we are going to see this again because this wasn't just Donald Trump's phenomenon. As somebody who was constantly looking at the polls over the last 2 months, I mean, the polls heavily predicted that countless senators were going to lose their Senate seats, and almost all of them retained their Senate seats. This was more than just Trump. And in fact, the polls also said that the Democrats were going to pick up 12 to 15 to 20 seats in the House. They lost 10. So they came close to losing their majorities. This wasn't just about Trump. I mean, Republicans in general just said, we're not participating in these polls.
Yeah, and I think that I noticed that Lindsey Graham versus Jamie Harrison spent more than has ever been spent on a campaign ever, and people predicted at least a close race. I don't have the exact number, but I think it was 73% to Lindsey Graham. It wasn't
he blew out.
Blowout.
I was actually stunned by that race just by looking at the polling and the amount of money she put into it. I thought he had a chance, but it was crazy.
55% to 44%.
Yeah, no. Well, here's the crazy thing, right?
That's still huge win.
Yeah.
So Jamie Harrison spent just as much money in the last month, on his campaign in South Carolina that Donald Trump spent nationally, and he ended up losing by the exact same amount as the person who ran against Lindsey Graham previously. So it had no effect, zero effect.
That's a good thing. I would say that's a good thing that money has limits. That you can't just push out an agenda through ads and then everyone says, okay, we're going to go with that. I think that has to do with the information that we can get on the internet. People make their decisions less based off of those ads, which is
Right.
probably
I think that's the exception. I think the rule is still money rules politics. I think you look at Joe Biden outspent Trump quite a bit. It seems to be the rule that the person who spends the most money still has the influence. And then not only that, but like the most you see it for like initiatives, ballot initiatives. Just like the more money you spend, the higher chance it is to work. That's just the way it works, you know. So
I mean, you would think, but Joe Biden spent hundreds of millions of dollars more than Trump, and then what did that really equate to? A 1-point swing in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So it takes nearly $1 billion for a 1-point swing. That doesn't really seem like a good use of money to me.
I personally think Trump is the exception. I think he is. I think when 2024, when they have a Republican candidate, it will be nothing like Trump. Trump is sort of like, you know, the Bernie Sanders on steroids, or like he's so much different than any Republican before. He says some of the same things, the pro-life, you know, border security, immigration reform, blah, blah, blah. But wow, it was not even close. And then also, he did not lower the debt at all, or the deficit in any way, not even once. Like, so I think he's the exception. I don't want to say I'm glad he's gone. I mean, maybe I am a little bit, but it's just like, he is so much different than any candidate we've had before. It's not even close. Can't even compare him. It's hard for me to even like compare him to anything. Compare this election to anything, because like he is just not the same candidate as anyone else. It'll never happen that way again, probably. Know what I mean?
Who do you think is going to be the next presidential candidate if you don't think Trump is going to do it?
I think Trump's going to do it. I think Trump runs again in 2024.
Same.
If he runs again, he will be the oldest elected president ever.
Doesn't stop at
Joe Biden is 77. He'll be 78.
Joe Biden already set the record. He wants to beat that record.
It's just great. Yeah, right? I'm the best. Right? I don't know. I don't think he runs, man. I think, first of all, this is my only prediction, really. I think Trump gets his hand slapped. He gets punished for some of the things he did, because now he doesn't have executive oversight over himself. So if he gets subpoenaed, he has to comply, right? Anything that happened under his watch, he's no longer the guy that can cover it up. So I think we're going to see like people looking into him.
Can we address that really quick? I have a quick question. So it's kind of been like the standard to pardon your previous president. We've seen it with Nixon. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
How do you feel about pardoning him, especially when he's got multiple counts of rape?
I mean, he wasn't accused. He was accused, but he wasn't ever convicted of that, right?
He was never charged.
Trial. Like right now, he has a subpoena for his DNA in one of the cases, and he's been fighting it.
Oh, I actually didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean, right? What I'm saying is he won't be able to do that, because like as a president, he has no. You can't accuse him of anything. You can't even like convict a president of anything. Only impeachment works, and that didn't work, obviously. And so I think that now that he's not president anymore, he doesn't have that executive excuse. I think you're going to see some, I don't know if strange, I think we all kind of saw it coming, but I think he's going to get in a little bit of trouble.
You know what?
Biden is going to follow suit and pardon him.
Well, I have a theory.
For
on
some
this
things, maybe. I don't think he's going to pardon him for everything. Right?
I think he'll pardon everything. They do it with every president. Okay, so Hillary Clinton, he said that she'd be in jail. I think that's just rhetoric. It's all rhetoric. You know, they want to say, oh, you'll be in jail, you'll be in trouble when you're out. Usually not. Or at least never in our history of the United States.
And I understand that, and I do see that that is kind of the precedent that's been set. But how are those who have accused him of rape and are right now so confident in what they've said, being underage and just waiting for his DNA, how do you feel that looks for Biden to pardon him from those crimes?
I mean, it wouldn't be the first egregious thing that Biden's done in his life.
True.
The crime bill. 1995.
Just want to throw that out there. But you know what? Before the episode started, we talked about whether or not we wanted to address conspiracy theories. So let me be the first to throw one out there. I think that I just heard that Vladimir Putin is considering stepping down as the president in Russia. So maybe Trump leaves America, goes to Russia, and tries to become the next president in Russia,
the Russia president.
to make Russia great again.
That's hilarious. That's a theory right there.
Who
That's
knows?
That's a fun one. I've heard that.
That's funny. That's funny.
Taking on Putin directly.
Yeah, we're literally replacing him, right? Become Secretary of State of Russia, China, Okay. Quick thing from the chat, from my buddy chat, Army buddy. Minimum wage. Do you think it's going to go up? You think that's going to happen now that Biden is president?
I don't think anything's going to happen. I feel like with the Republicans retaining the Senate, I feel like Mitch McConnell is just going to sit down in his, Senate majority chair, and he's going to say, check this out. We're not doing anything until, the midterms, so just, good luck with that, and then good night. And there could be no backlash for it, because they did nothing for the last 2 years, and they only expanded their majority in the House and retained the Senate. So there was no political backlash for them not doing anything the last 2 years. Why would that change now?
So that's exactly what I was just talking to my husband about today, because I said the same thing. I'm like, the most helpful thing the Democrats could have done would be to get Mitch McConnell out of there, frankly, and seek that majority, because really, we haven't been able to do anything. Nobody's sitting down and going with the bipartisan line and actually making decisions together.
Right.
Nothing's going to happen. And Biden, if you know anything about him, he's actually pretty moderate. He doesn't even believe in socialized medicine. He doesn't believe in the ACA. So I agree. I don't think really anything's going to happen. I think it's going to be a stalemate, kind of.
What about the stimulus? I want that.
Yeah.
He said, McConnell said needs to pass it. He said himself,
Yeah.
you gotta get over it. So maybe that happens. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Make my life better for sure. I'd be so happy.
McConnell did point out that he seemed kind of worried that the Republicans took a beating in the suburbs, and he said that directly after he said that we need to win the suburbs back, and I want to get stimulus passed. So, I mean, if McConnell actually wants to get something done, it probably will get done. I mean, he's kind of the most powerful person in Congress right now. I mean, let's just be fair.
He's the most powerful person probably to ever exist in the Congress, in my opinion. I think
Absolutely.
he is like a Sith Lord. I think he's more powerful than the president.
He looks
Seriously.
like a Sith Lord. He should not be on television.
Dude is literally him and Nancy Pelosi too. Nancy Pelosi is, to me, probably the most influential Speaker of the House ever. Right, and I think we actually took a beating this time. This was not a good election for her, and it shows obviously she's lost a little of her power. But if you look in the past, she has been historically influential. So I don't know, man. It's crazy little battle we have going on right now. And now that we have a Democratic president, I think we see even more of that power exercise from the House.
Well, Biden ran on the whole platform of being able to work with the Republicans. So we'll get to test that theory out in real time. And if he can't, I'm going to take every chance I can to bash him, because he stoked his entire political capital in the election, saying that was what he could do. He said, I will work with this country to make things better. I will do what Donald Trump can't. And so every day that he doesn't, I'm going to smash him for it. Because you got to be fair about these things. I can't. You go from smashing Trump and then not smashing Biden. So
I absolutely agree with that, because he has run his hat on that, and some of our best legislation has been across the aisle. I mean, a lot of us, I don't really want to bring up Roe v. Wade, but when you actually look at it, it wasn't all based on the fact of the amount of people who are dying from coat hanger abortions and infections and getting septic and going to the hospital. Part of it was based on privacy. That's how they got the conservative vote in the Supreme Court. Was it's privacy, it's their business, it's their freedom. And when you look together and actually work together on that, we can actually make decisions and actually get stuff done, and people can see each other's side.
I think kind of the opposite. I think I don't think he's going to be that aisle-reaching guy that we think he is. He's not going to be very bipartisan, because look at the issues, right? Do you think that abortion with a Supreme Court majority, do you think that's something that conservatives move on? I don't think they do. I think that's pretty concrete. I think immigration, right? I don't think that's the Trump form of immigration is what seems to be. That's kind of what got him the election, honestly, is he was the only one talking about it like he was. That's why he beat all the other Republican candidates. That's not something I see Republicans walking away from. And I don't see Democrats reaching across that.
I could see them maybe coming around on immigration, at least for path to citizenship. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like maybe you're underselling the importance of the abortion issue on the right. I mean, Louisiana just passed an amendment on their state saying that no one has a constitutional right for an abortion. The one senator out of Arkansas, Cotton, who's looking to run in 2024, the most like impactful thing that's happened in the last 2 months was Amy Coney Barrett being appointed to the Supreme Court because of her stance on pro-life issues.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of energy around, the abortion issue on the right, and I think the Democrats don't really like understand just how passionate people are on the right about that issue. I think they
Well, that's
want
what I mean.
I think they want to undercut it.
No one's going to reach. Like, there's going to be no bipartisan agreement on that. Period. I think that's just my prediction. I think that they're the parties that have their opinion on that, and that's just how they're going to be. It's not going to change, right? Like.
Oh,
so-
yeah, no, I wasn't saying Roe v. Wade was going to change. I was saying in the past, when you actually look at what went on and what they were speaking about, they came to the passing of basically of abortion, and them deciding on the Supreme Court was based on them being bipartisan. So back then, with seeing that and all that being salient in people's mind, their views were a lot different than the current views of the right side on abortion. I was just saying that some of our good legislation that we've actually had good votes and good outcomes on have been bipartisan work. And I'm not saying Biden will work bipartisanly. I'm just hoping he will, because that's what he stated he would do.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm a little worried because here's another big issue that we're just not addressing. We didn't even bring it up this election. Neither candidate talked about it almost once. The deficit and the debt. It's a big problem. It's a huge problem. Huge deficit. Huge debt. We're spending way too much money. Our quote unquote entitlement programs are costing way too much money. We're still spending too much money in the military. That's bad. Our credit score got demoted when Obama was president, right? It never got better. Not even I didn't see a single ad about that for anything. None of the senators, none of the House representatives, none of the governor races, nothing. I didn't see a single mention of that. So.
Oh, you will now. Don't worry. It was just because Trump was in office. The Republicans are right back into deficit hawk mode now that they're
Let's
not
do a
power
quick search here. Let's see. Government deficit in 2016. Okay, let's see what it was here.
I mean, the Democrats have never cared about the debt, let's be fair. The Republicans only care when they're not in power.
All right, deficit $587 billion in 2016. 2020. Obviously, it didn't come up as easy, but let's find out. Well, let's try 2019 because I guess 2020 is not over yet, right? 2019. You're gonna love this. $984 billion.
Oh.
I mean, it doubled.
I mean, a
It
lot
doubled.
of that has been because of the corona. Oh no, because 2019 was before that stuff
Yep.
happened.
Yeah, I actually got in an argument about that and did a lot of research on it. Actually, so with coronavirus, we've seen some economic recession, and we've seen signs of that, like lowered gas prices and lowered interest rates. But when it actually comes with the debt our nation has incurred, most of it happened prior to coronavirus.
Crazy. I mean, we're talking about a double. It almost doubled, right? Under a conservative president, right? And that's me as a libertarian. That's one of my biggest things about Trump. Is he wasn't a real conservative. He was Republican for sure. He was not a conservative. Right? Conservatives, very, very limited in spending, limited in regulation. That was not what Trump was. He massive regulations, not much decreased, and the spending went up almost 100%. So.
Well, I mean, there hasn't really been a true conservative president probably since Reagan. I mean, every Republican has increased the size of government since they got in office.
I think Bush Sr., but then he didn't get reelected, right? People didn't like it. They're like, stop, you gotta spend more money, So, I don't know, man. It's just so strange to me that a conservative, there's no conservative, which is also crazy because, if you guys know the political compass, all of our candidates are in the far right, there's 4 boxes. They're almost all of them, except for Bernie Sanders, are way up right. They're real right, real economic right with authoritarian.
Oh,
They're
I
all
know.
right.
If you talk to people from other countries, especially Canada, Germany, they laugh at us saying that our liberal candidates are liberal or the far left. They're like, oh,
even close.
maybe Bernie's not even left, and I'm like, oh.
Not even
We are
close.
a country because that's kind of how voters lean, though.
I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. Like I said, I think personally, conservatism is good. I like conservatism, right? The idea that we need to be self-sufficient, the idea that you should rely on yourself more than others, those are just natural order of law. I don't know how to explain it. I'm not saying liberalism is bad, especially classic liberalism. I think you do need safety nets and stuff, but conservatism is not bad. But that's not what we have. We don't have conservative candidates, even though they're all right-leaning. Blows me away. It just makes no sense to me. How do you get more conservative when all of your candidates are already super authoritarian right. How do we come back from that? I don't know. What to do. So.
I don't know. I mean, Republicans, in this country aren't really too upset about where their party's direction is heading, though. I think that's just evident in how the House races just went. I mean, they picked up seats. So, I mean, obviously, there was more Republicans voting this election than in the last eletion.
Well, Montana here, we went all red, 100%. In fact, in Cascade County, where I live, 100% of the Republican candidates won. There wasn't a single Democrat that won in any way. So.
Yeah, I think only one won here in Missoula.
Ridiculous. It's like I said, I don't think there's a problem with that. Like, we have a candidate guy here in Great Falls, one of our state legislators, Ed Buttrey. Guys, he's good. He's a real bipartisan, nice guy. I have no problem. I don't even know if he ran because I'm not in his district anymore. But I'm not saying that Republicans are bad. I'm saying that we spend too much money, and that's something Republicans are supposed to be about, and they're not about it. So, huge issue, in my opinion. So, what else? Let's just do a quick good, bad, and ugly, right? This is something. You think of something good, something bad, something ugly, right? For me, again, the ugly I would say is the debt. That's not going to get better. That's just a problem. The good, drugs. We legalize drugs. Yay, go drugs. We're finally getting off that war on drugs mentality a little bit. The country's coming around. Pretty much bipartisan support for legalization of some of these recreational, activities. That's me. Nothing but a good thing. I love it. And the bad, Mitch McConnell's still there, so that sucks. So.
Yeah. So the ugly is calling the election a fraud.
Yeah, I would agree there.
So, I mean, who knows what kind of backlash that's going to have for the next few weeks, if not longer. I remember having people DM me on Instagram and on Twitter talking about how the Biden crime family stole the election. And I was like, I don't know what to say to that. I don't know how to explain this to people because for weeks, if not months, I knew because I guess maybe just the media that I consume that it was going to take days for some of these states to count these ballots because of the fact that the state legislatures mandated that some of these states wait until the day of the election before they could even open the mail-in ballots versus, surprisingly, other states like Florida, which is completely Republican in its legislature, allowed that state to open their mail-in ballots weeks before the election, which is why Florida was able to get their entire vote pumped out in a few hours. But for whatever reason, Pennsylvania was like, no, you can't touch them until election day. And because of that, we were all driving ourselves crazy for the last few days. So, yay for Florida, boo for Pennsylvania.
Okay. What's crazy is no one on the Trump side is saying that Florida was counted wrong, right? Because he won it. He wasn't supposed to win Florida, but he did. No one's like, oh man, recount Florida. They don't mind. They don't mind that he won.
Here's the thing with that, though, is that there was a huge margin there. If it was super close, there would have been Democrats saying and especially if the race wasn't pretty much over for Florida. If Florida was in the balance, and for some reason this whole race had gone differently, and Florida was the last state, and it was separated by 30 to 40,000 votes, like a lot of these states that they're calling frauds and blah, 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 then the Democrats would have been all over that crap. They would.
I see your point, but Trump was calling before, we had that many votes, trying to call it. Democrats didn't flip out and say, hey, let's count more votes. Trump was doing that on states that barely had any of their votes counted. They were 60%, and you have these Republicans in Arizona saying, count those votes, because they thought it would be red. You had Republicans up in Michigan saying, stop counting these votes. I actually watched the videos, so I know that this happened. There were just swarms of them.
Right, and honestly,
I wouldn't have done that because, we're all hypocritical crap. But
I want to interject on this conversation really quick because this is the biggest point that I want to make, is that Trump knew, and so many other people knew, that this was going to happen because these individual states made these laws saying that those states couldn't open their ballots until election day. And then on top of that, the states told everyone that they were going to count the mail-in ballots last. So it was very easily predictable that it was going to go that way, where you would have Trump being up by a lot and then his lead coming down. I mean, everyone was Yeah, he knew that. So when he was talking about all this fraud and all this like votes coming out of nowhere, votes falling out of the sky, he's lying about that, which is so hard to hear. Because did he say anything with the other states, like Ohio, for instance? They said that they were going to count their mail-in ballots first, which is why Ohio was blue for so long on election night, and then it turned red.
Flipped.
But no one talked about the Republicans stealing Ohio from the Democrats. Like, come on now.
That was my
Right.
point. But you summed it up perfectly, in my opinion.
That was part of the bigger plan, though. If you recall, Trump was calling to like the Supreme Court and trying to make it so that you could only count votes until election night. So if he makes laws that you can't count those ballots early, if he would have gotten through and actually got people to stop the count on election night, he would have been president.
Yeah,
Which
but
is a
that would
joke.
have been ridiculous. There's no way you can do that. It was never going to happen. You
Yeah,
can't.
I,
mean-
I wasn't worried about it. I'm just saying he
Yeah,
had a
the
plan.
Supreme Court would have shot that down
Yeah.
real quick.
Which would be even more ironic because he himself was elected the night after in 2016. They didn't call the election until 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern time in 2016.
Yeah.
True.
Well, we also had coronavirus. You had, social distancing requirements. You had a lot of extra stuff to deal with this year. There's no question it was going to take some time. But I'm seeing like
Voters.
logical people on my timeline, people that are sane, rational people, saying there's fraud, and it's like you in any other situation you make so much sense. But why is this something you decide to fall on? I don't understand it. It's so weird to me.
What I don't understand either is like every fraud. So I will start out by saying that like most of it's baddie, like the one with Wisconsin. More people than the state have voted. Well, there's 5.8 million people. There were 3.6 million registered voters. There are 3.3 million votes. False. So I'm not saying there's any credibility to any of these. But if you look at it, they're nonpartisan. You don't know who was cheating. Anybody could have cheating. The polls could have been right, and maybe Trump was cheating. So that's one assumption that also drives me insane, because even if there was fraud, which I'm saying in no way has there been any proven, even the Republicans counting in Pennsylvania, the Republican representatives were like, no, we've had access to these ballots, what are you talking about? But I'm just saying, like, who's to call that fraud?
Right. Just so we're not all piling on Trump endlessly, I want to point out that there were all the ballots being sent to every household instead of it being you request a ballot and stuff definitely helped Democrats, because there's a lot of people
It didn't help him in Montana.
right, not in Montana, but nationwide.
Didn't work at all in
It definitely
Montana.
helped the
Complete right wave.
Democrats overall, because what happened was a bunch of people that wouldn't have actually gone out and voted because they weren't that excited about Biden, right? No one likes Biden, really, I don't think. Some people really like Biden, I'm not sure why. Just watching him sometimes can be funny, I guess. But the point is, you can look at it, and a bunch of people that wouldn't have bothered sat down at their tables. It came to them, so they didn't have to do any work or think about it, and they filled it out, and they drove it somewhere. It wasn't... It's not like it
That's
didn't
why
help
part of it,
Democrats.
I know 4 separate people who voted just because they get ballots sent to them here that were Trump supporters and they voted for Trump.
I mean,
Like I said-
I don't see anything as though there being an issue with that, though. I mean, I don't think that's
No,
really
I don't think there is. I'm just saying it
it's
is
an
both
issue.
ways, because 3 of those 4 people never voted. One of them, she's like, I voted once because my mom made me.
Right, so we had all mail-in ballots here in Montana and also in the state of Utah, 2 states that went overwhelmingly for Trump. So when I hear people online talking about, like, oh, all these mail-in ballots were just so heavily favoring Democrats, I was like, I think mail-in ballots just favor the people who wanted mail-in ballots, because there were people getting mail-in ballots all over the country. I mean, Iowa had, like, millions of mail-in ballots sent out, and they were evenly
Let's be real.
distributed between both parties, and Iowa went to Trump.
Let's be real here, guys. Mail-in ballots favor voters. This is it. Like, they're not a bad thing. Like, it's good that we can vote. Hillary Clinton won popular vote by a huge margin. Like, historic margin, right?
3
And
million.
happened again this year. In fact, his
4 million.
lead was less, right?
Yep.
Hillary Clinton had more of a lead in popular vote than Joe Biden did. And so,
That's false. That's not correct. Sorry.
that's not correct, is it? I know he won
No.
about 3 million, right?
But by a percentage. By a percentage, I think it is true.
By
right?
percentage.
No,
That's what I meant. Not
Well, I mean,
total
it's
votes.
like, yeah, Hillary Clinton won by 3 million. Biden's currently winning by 4 million, and they still have like 20% left to count in California.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
probably
they're similar. Okay, they're
Or
similar,
both.
right?
Isn't it, like, percentage-wise, still more for Hillary, I thought?
Either
For
way,
now.
the moral story is
For
they
now.
both won the popular vote by a similar margin, right? And so, like, nothing really changed. It's not like mail-in ballots changed the election. Like, and I don't get why people have a problem with mail-in ballots. I understand if you think it's fraud, that's a legitimate concern. But like mail-in ballots favor voters. Like if you want to vote, you should be able to vote. That's a great thing. I don't know why.
I really genuinely believe that it favors Democrats heavily. It's been like so obvious through almost every state. Obviously, there's some states that are so heavily red that it didn't really matter. But there are so many mail-in ballots, like 70-something%, I bet you, were from Democrats on mail-in ballots. You can't
Well,
say
that's the problem.
That's
Who cares?
honestly, it's not that it's. It shouldn't be whether it's a problem or not. That's completely because of Trump.
Well,
I mean,
can I put a counter argument? So polls and making people only go vote at polls, that favors Republicans, and there's a lot of people right now trying to push for that. So how is pushing for mail-in ballots different than pushing for just poll voting?
Because I think you should have absentee ballots. That way you have to put in a little bit of effort, not much. All you have to do is say you want it, and then they'll send it to you. But just having it show up at your door without you even having the foresight to say you want to vote, I think there's a big problem with uneducated voting at that point. People just voting because it's sent to their doorstep. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm a Democrat, but they've never done anything.
Well, two things here. We're all
I was raised
uneducated
Democrat.
voters. Let's be fair about that.
Yeah.
None of us are really that educated about these issues. I didn't even know who my state representative was until like 2 weeks ago, and I'm 30 years old. So let's be a little fair about that. But secondly, here, up until this election, mail-in ballots were favored by Republicans in every election for about half a century. So mail-in ballots were always a Republican thing until just this cycle, when Trump went way out of his way to demonize them, and then was somehow shocked that all the mail-in ballots were against him. Like, that was a big mystery after you spent a whole year trashing mail-in ballots.
I think we have this weird dynamic in this country, right? Because we want to make it easy to vote. We want to have it like super simple. We at least a lot of people do. But then you still want a secure election, and you want a good election. You want like Hunter said, you want people who are informed to vote. I think both parties would sort of agree. You don't really want like bad, uneducated people voting. Like that's why people in jail can't vote, right? We have these rules for a reason. At the same time, though, we also try to make it super easy to vote. And so, like, I think we're like trying to have our cake and eat it too. Like, I think we need to pick one. Like, do you want a secure, safe election, or do you want like an open, super easy to register election?
I'm gonna come from the constitutionalist perspective. We were awarded the right to vote no matter how dumb we are.
Yeah, that's literally the foundation of a democracy, voting. Right? Without voting, there's no democracy. It's just how it works. Like republic, either you got to vote for the people that vote. Like
you're voting for people who are supposed to represent you with your vote.
No matter what, like voting is clutch. You have to have it. It has to exist. So
Kanye voters matter.
he got 0.1% somewhere.
I'm not gonna lie,
Louisiana, I think.
You guys, Kanye for life.
But we already put restrictions on voting. Like I said, you got to be 18, can't be in jail. You got to register. Like we have rules already. No one cries about those rules. No one does. No
it's a state by state thing.
Yeah, it is.
You can vote in jail in Vermont.
In some places you can.
In 2 states, yeah.
You can be like a felon and pay a fine and reconcile. It is just state by state.
That's what I'm saying. Like no one really cares about those rules. Like no one's dying on that hill that voting restrictions currently are so unethical. No one says that, right? And so why can't we just like either tighten the vote up a little bit? I don't know. Like I don't know, man. Like it just.
As long as people,
I see your point,
hear
Hunter.
I hear the people who are talking about like they're worried about fraud. I'm worried about fraud too. I was worried about fraud, like in every election. I think the thing is like, as long as we have transparency, in our elections, then we should all be okay. And I think there is an argument to be made that there's not enough transparency currently.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm largely on the same page there. I personally, this is more of a devil's advocate. I'm not like actually arguing that we should make voting harder. I just think like we already have it hard. Voting is already hard to do. It's on a Tuesday. Yeah. Like what? Like if you work, that's just a bad day to have it. And then the voting hours are only like 8 to 8 or whatever. They're not even 24 hours. Like voting is already difficult.
And among both parties, a lot of people have jobs and kids, and they can't afford to take that day off. A lot of jobs, like especially like let's say you're a CNA, you have to work that day. You can't be short, and it's actually illegal, and you can get arrested for patient abandonment to even leave to go vote. Some people just actually can't leave to vote.
That's what I mean, right?
Right.
And so,
And that's why we need absentee ballots, is because people can't, they can't be there on the day of. So they plan ahead and say, I'm not going to be able to vote on that day, so I need an absentee ballot. So I'll send in and say I need that absentee ballot.
Yeah. No, that was true, and I think that was true in our country for a long time. But like I was actually just looking at the early voting just from this cycle alone, and I mean over 40 states offered early voting in some form or another. This cycle. So there's only a few states that were still like, oh yeah, we don't do early voting. One of them being Missouri. So hats off to you, Missouri, for continuing to suck even in like 2020.
Don't they suck at like everything? I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I just don't understand, like, when you are doing worse than like all the other red states around you, like you would think that you would get it together. I mean, Kansas, Nebraska, Arkansas, Kentucky, they all offered early in-person voting, and Missouri was like, nah, we don't do that here.
I don't even like try to understand the South, honestly. Like, no offense to anyone in the South.
Not even the South, just Missouri. I mean, all the other southern states were doing it.
Like teen pregnancy is terrible there, and they want nothing but to ban like contraceptive. Like,
look at them. Most of those schools don't have sex ed. I just found out that Great Falls High doesn't do sex ed anymore. I remember that I had it in like the 4th and 5th grade, and sex ed has been directly tied to decreases in pregnancy, decreases in abortion, increases in contraceptive use, and decreases in STDs, as have Title X clinics like Planned Parenthood. So,
and they want nothing but to ban that stuff. That's what I mean. That's why I don't even begin to like understand southern states. And when I say southern states, I want to make it clear, like, I'm not talking about like all red states. I'm talking about like the Bible Belt. Like, I don't get why they vote the way they do when they have the problems they have. I just don't understand it. So I don't even try to. It doesn't make sense to me. I never will. What else? So
real quick, Brian pointed out it's actually a Midwest state. Missouri is.
Well, I mean, they claim to be both, right? Because they're a part of the Southeastern Conference in football.
No, but they're technically Midwestern, like Iowa and Kansas.
Yeah, they on the map claims. I'll post it just in case anyone's curious.
I mean, is Kentucky a part of the South? Because they're online with us.
How high they are in longitude.
Hunter posting links, getting the proof.
Yep. Just in case anyone was curious.
Yeah, just in case, right? That's funny.
My family's from there, I know, but I was accepted south. It starts with the Mississippi.
I just don't get it. Like, and look at that. I think people need more conservatism. I think we need more individual responsibility in our society. I think we should have that. But like, I would, like, that's why I'll never be president. It's because I like have like these weird libertarian beliefs. Like, I would abolish Social Security just right off the gate. Like, I think it's the worst investment ever. It's like a terrible investment.
I wouldn't vote for you.
It's terrible. Yeah, what an unpopular opinion that is. But like, it's broken. You guys, someone's got to address it. So, like I said, there's gonna be you're gonna see, when Social Security finally breaks, it's gonna happen. Like, it is. It's coming to an end sooner than later, probably, right? Like,
because we take money from it.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, like, we've been paying into it our entire lives. Why did some generations get to reap the benefits and other generations don't? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
No, you're right. You can either abolish it, or you can have it be abolished because it runs out. We're running out of money because...
My point was it's running out because we're actually taking money from Social Security and using it to, like, fund other shit because we're so in debt.
Why it's running out is because people aren't dying. People are taking it for longer. And less people are being born, right? We had a huge boom in like growth from World War II.
Part of it, but if you actually look, you can look up online and look all sorts of like ways they've taken money from Social Security. Because increasing aging population is part of it, and the increase in the amount of like kids we have is part of it. I will give you that, but I'm just saying like there's a lot to that. It's not really a cut and dry issue with Social Security like a lot of people think it is.
The reason I hate it is because of this, right? If I were to just put money in a shoebox under my bed instead of Social Security, right? One, I'd have it immediately, anytime I wanted it. It wouldn't be only when I'm 68 or whatever. It'd be whenever I needed it, I got the money right there, right? 100%. Second of all, Social Security is a stipend. When you finally get Social Security, you don't get a lump sum. You just get a small piece of money. That is a drastic difference than having access to all your funds. Not even close, right? You can buy a house with funds. You can't buy a house on a stipend. It's just a drastic difference, right? And 3, the investment return is terrible. If you were to put it in a Roth IRA, 401k, or even just in a shoebox, you would still have a good return, whereas Social Security is not a good return, right?
Okay, I wholly agree, but the whole reason it was invented is because there are some people who live paycheck to paycheck who can't afford to put money to the side, and it was kind of a security thing for them.
Look how much is taken out of it, right? And with the cost of living nowadays, super high. Everything costs money nowadays. It's like 20% of your paycheck sometimes, it feels like. I don't know what it is. Don't quote me on that, but you look at your paycheck and you're missing this fat chunk of money on there. I would rather just have that and not be in poverty than worry about,
It's 6.2%.
So I would say, though, like, if you think about as like a giant tribe, right? And then it is sort of responsibility of the younger people that are in the tribe to take care of the elderly. And so it's not about, it's about a moral for me. It's not about whether we can afford it, blah, 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 blah. It's like when my kid wants a Christmas present. Just because I don't really have the money for that present doesn't mean I don't find a way to get that present for him, because it's sort of like important. It's important to do. And our old people in this country, a lot of times, because of the way our country is, don't end up with enough money to live until they die. And then what? We're just going to let them have shitty lives in broken down homes with crackheads around them?
Absolutely, especially when the system's so broken right now, and even getting Medicare doesn't even cover most of the meds. There's donut holes. People are after fighting to get procedures done. And like fixed incomes, people are living off cat food, and we're not taking care of them. These are the people who fought in our major wars to protect us. They've worked their whole lives through the biggest point of innovation in America, and we're just gonna dump them.
Well, look at the other flaw of Social Security, right? Because you're talking about it doesn't scale with the economy, right? When you pull Social Security, I did an install for one lady in, I don't know where it was, somewhere in Montana when I was working with Dish, and her Social Security check was not even close. It was $100-something a month or whatever, because her wages when she was growing up were not that much. And so her wages back then, if you scaled them, they'd be awesome. But the actual dollar amount was so tiny that her check was just abysmally small. And that's a huge issue. Someone has to address this, right? I know no one's arguing that Social Security doesn't need to exist or whatever. But you got to do something better than this. This system sucks.
That I wholly agree on.
It is so bad.
One thing that me and my conservative brother have talked about is he has all these things, we have so many rules and regulations on hospitals that we could repeal them, put less on, because we keep stacking stuff. We never repeal and replace. And I'm just scared we're going to repeal and not replace it. Because, there are definitely better ways. I feel like we have a lot of programs currently in the government and a lot of social programs that I think we could run better, run more effectively, and help more people with. But I'm really scared that if we get rid of it, it's never going to be replaced.
You're probably right. I mean, like I said, there are definitely cronyisms. There's cronyism about the wealthy. I don't even want to. I'm not even going to die on the hill in any way, because it's true. That is factual. They're corrupt. Government's corrupt. I just don't know. You tax me at 6%, and then when I'm going to get it, it's going to be 30% of, not even that, 20% of what it requires for me to live, and I'm going to die anyway. It's just not.
Hey guys. I hate to do this, but I do have to leave a little bit early today. I forgot I had told my kids we'd do a few things, so I gotta go.
All good. Hey, any closing thoughts? Any shout out to your YouTube? What's going on?
Anyone who's watching, my kid, I would be his hero. If it might be hard to find, but if you guys end up here, I'll try and post it in chat.
Post in the comments
after I log off. But Frozen Fire Gaming. I just want to get 6 subscribers. My kid will be over the moon. You don't have to watch anything. It'd just be really cool if I could say, buddy, look, we're popular now.
Oh, for sure. Post that in the chat. I'm all over.
Fire Gaming.
I will post that right as soon as I get off this call. Anyone that can do that, I'd super appreciate it.
Real quick, there's multiple. What's your logo?
Yeah, I'll post it in the chat, but it's gonna be like a circle, and it's gonna have a flame that is blue and orange to represent frozen fire. So yeah, I'll do that.
Cool. All right. Good talking to you, man. We'll see you next Sunday or Saturday or whenever we do another one.
All right, Hunter. We'll see you
Thank
next
you
week.
guys so much for having me. I'll catch you later.
Bye.
I do feel like we did get off topic a little bit there with Social Security. That was my fault. I apologize. Again, I would not die on the hill of abolishing Social Security. That's not. I'm being facetious.
With you, and that's where I think like a lot of people, like me speaking over you now, get that all mixed up because like I feel like we're going for the same thing. It's just like a lot of people want to get rid of it and they're passionate about that, but a lot of us are like agree, but we're scared because we're like we need to do something.
Well,
and that's why I stayed out of it, because I realized this was a two-person conversation.
No, it's like we built it into our society. Saying to remove it is like silly. Like I'm not going to die on that for sure. But speaking of that, budget. I mean, back to the budget. Like our budget's crazy. Like it's not. Do you think legalizing drugs helps it? Is that something we can do to maybe fix this budget problem we have?
I haven't looked recently, but we used to spend a lot of money of the war on drugs, and we actually spend a lot of money sending people to private prisons and taking care of them for like tiny ass like crimes, like small crimes of possession, not even like intent to sell, and we're sending people like away for a long time. So even with intent to sell, with it being legal, they get away longer. And I feel like with us cutting that money that we'd be sending to prison and the war on drugs, we'd be saving our country quite a bit that we could put back into our national economy. And against
let me like add an alternative, like darker perspective. Because I feel like a lot of our economy in America is made through dark means. And by dark, I mean just like immoral ways. And so I feel like the war on drugs has propagated our economy in ways that people don't like to talk about. It has allowed for sheriffs and, like cops in communities in urban and rural areas all over the country to stay vastly employed through all the different like fines that they can like issue out. It allows people to stay in private prisons, which allows those people to make money. It allows doctors to prescribe more opioids because more people are seeking pain relief. And so while certain sectors of our economy will go up, all of those sectors will go down, and I'm actually not in the slightest bit upset about that.
Okay, I was going to say the same thing. We've had this conversation about how much we lose every year because of opioid-related mortality and morbidity. So, yeah.
I was gonna say if you're benefiting from a broken system and that system gets fixed, like I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, sure, sorry you lost your job. I guess I don't know, man.
Capitalism gives you the right to fail, man. Sorry.
I just you don't know. I don't feel bad for you. Like if you're cancer, obviously you don't want to be removed from the body.
Yeah.
Like and I'm not calling cops cancer. That's not the case. But like, if you benefit from this archaic system that was clearly designed to like oppress poor people, sorry. Bye.
I'm okay with saying bad things about people who continuously call marijuana a Schedule 1 narcotic, who are willing to believe that weed is more dangerous than alcohol because apparently they're blind. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't even smoke weed, and I'm pissed off about this issue. It makes no sense that we spend so much time in our lives and in this country trying to repeal, or not repeal, but just prohibit the use of a plant, but we're 100% okay with people like drunk driving all the time. I just don't know how you can have it both ways.
I think it's a control issue. I think that's a lot of the way that Democrats and Republicans make their decision. They want to control your rights, and I mean that for both sides. Like, I think we should move towards environmentalism, but I don't think that we should smack a burger out of everybody's hand since cows put a lot out, or smack anybody who's using a plastic fork since plastic production companies are one of the biggest producers of hydrocarbons, But the thing is, there are people who feel that way, just like there are people who want to control. They care more about controlling somebody's right to have an abortion than taking care of the kid afterwards, or they care more about you smoking weed than they really should. And I think that's actually a big part of it, because we are an authoritative, let me be clear, not authoritarian, authoritative type country, and I think we just want to control people for a large part of it.
That's always been my main argument, is that we have no candidates that are libertarian at all. And I don't mean like libertarian in the party, just the ideology that like individual liberties. We don't have any candidates.
Rand Paul's in Kentucky right now.
Yeah. Rand Paul is a Republican. He is not a libertarian.
Are you saying he's not, living up to his dad's dream?
Not even close. Ron Paul was my hero. Rand Paul is a disgusting perversion of that. I don't know what you would call Rand Paul. He's not the same thing. Like I said, and I don't. It's hard to be a libertarian because we have built ourselves in a collective, and so we do have these systems in place that we rely on them so much. Like I get it. Like you can't just abolish everything. I'm not an anarchist. I'm a libertarian, right? I just believe that like my money is better spent by me than the government. If I want a road built, I would rather have save the tax money you took from me and build the road, have someone help build it. Because like right now, my road, it's got potholes in it. And so not only do I pay for this road that sucks, right? I would never pay for this. I can't go out and fix it.
A lot of that has to do with how they spend the money. Haven't you seen them bidding jobs to people like Gianforte bidding his friend that electrician job and then them doing nothing? That happens to a lot. That's not just a Republican thing. That happens bipartisan across our nation.
No, Democrats are worse.
And none of the money goes towards it.
So, and not only that, you also tax me on my car. When I bought the car, you taxed me.
Yeah.
And then you tax me every year on it for my registration. And then you make me buy insurance, which is taxed. And then you take my money out of my check, which is taxed. It's just like tax. And then there's potholes in my road. Like, what? Like, come on, dude. So I just believe, like, with any government program, my money is better spent doing it the way I want to. I would rather just, like, not get taxed on the road and just build the road myself because I would do a much better job.
It'd probably at least get done and for a way cheaper price if you did it that way.
Not even close. Like, Hunter told that story about the bathroom. They made a bathroom in a park.
Oh, I'm agreeing with you, Lloyd. I'm saying if you and your neighbors got together and saved up money to fix the road, you guys would probably do it quicker, actually do it, and get it done cheaper.
You know what's crazy? That actually happens in a lot of rural areas. People pitch in and they get a road built. And it's
that's what happened to my dad. My dad and mom live out of town, and like nobody wanted to build this road, and he eventually harassed everybody because it's a bunch of rich people with nice cars into all paying for because the county wasn't going to pave the road out there.
So I don't know. That to me, that's kind of the bad of the election is that we don't have any libertarian sort of ideas this year, right? I know we need to address the environment. I'm happy about that. I think Biden will do a better job than Trump would have done. I think that, other things...
That should be our next topic of discussion. What is Biden going to do? Because as we were joking about earlier, he's coming into office with literally no plan.
Not Trump.
No plan.
No.
I mean, his whole policy, his whole platform was, everyone, I don't have a plan, vote for me. And wear a mask.
I have the beginning of 20 plans, as Jim Carrey said playing him, but I don't have any plans. We got headlines, though. We're going to fix that environment.
He made one campaign promise. He was like, I'm going to be on Twitter less. And everyone was like, okay, you got my vote.
I don't know. Yeah. So, actually, question here, right? 2024 comes. Do you think he runs again?
Biden?
Yeah.
0 chance.
Do you think
I'd be willing to bet money on it. We can actually write out the bets right now. I'd be willing to take money on it.
I would be substantially happier if he did not.
What about Trump? Does he run again?
I have the hope that I'll have 2 candidates to choose from that might not be terrible.
I honestly think it's a pretty strong possibility. For one, there's no way he's abandoning his 80+ million Twitter platform. He'll be on Twitter every single day, saying whatever he wants to say, continuing to rile up the base. I mean, I don't think he's going to abandon that power. It's just a question of how he wants to use it, and I think it's very plausible that he uses it to run again in 2024. I mean, because as of right now, I think you're also seeing a bunch of Republicans being also afraid of that, which is why they're all like backing him all of a sudden, because they're afraid that if they don't get behind him now, that they will face retribution in the future because they don't think he's going anywhere.
Susan Collins, notorious, he did not support re-election for him, and she won her election. I think the era of Trump is pretty much over. I don't think he's running again. I don't think his base is anywhere near this powerful in 2024. I don't know, man. Like Susan Collins was a big one for me, man. Like, how did she win re-election? How?
Well, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, we always take these things for granted. But I mean, Trump won in Montana in 2016 while Steve Bullock was the governor. Steve Bullock became the governor. So, like, let's not act like states aren't incapable of voting split ticket.
But like the thing is, like, she was Republican, and she did not support Amy Coney Barrett. She did not support his reelection. She voted against him a bunch of times, right?
Which might have helped her in that state.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm saying. It's just like wild to me. Like, you have never Trumpers still winning. Like, I think it's done, man. I think Trump's.
I'm willing to
writing's on the
record
wall.
this piece of this episode and play it back to you in a year or two.
Okay,
See how you
yeah,
feel.
2 years, 2.5 years when the election cycle starts. Let me know, because, like, I don't know, man. Maybe I just hope it's over. You know, because I want
Yeah.
a good Republican candidate. I want a good fiscally conservative candidate, right? Because I've never voted for a Republican for president. Probably won't change. Probably a libertarian. But like, let's say we get someone who's a respectable human being, like John McCain, outside of some policy. He was a good human being, right? You know, who also is very conservative in the sense that actually conservative, not like Republican conservative.
How about
Maybe-
like we make a party that's fiscally conservative and believes in freedom and liberalness otherwise, and believes in, I don't know, the limited social programs we need to fund the country, like a true moderate.
Maybe
Not happening.
we can hope, right? I mean, are there any prominent ones we can think of? I don't really
No,
can't think of
there
a
isn't
single one.
one. That's what I'm saying. We need a new party.
Well, I mean, before we get on the third party topic, because I know that's where this conversation's heading, I was looking online at like who the Republicans were thinking of might run in 2024, and their top two choices right now are Mike Pence and Donald Trump Jr. So if that tells you anything about what's going on in the future, I mean, there was underneath those two, by the way, were Ted Cruz, Senator Cotton from Arkansas, and Marco Rubio. So, oh, and I'm sorry,
Okay.
Nikki Haley was also one that they were talking about.
Okay.
So,
Nikki Haley won't get it. Unfortunately, the country is bigoted. Let's be real. It's a man's world. Not only
Yeah.
that, but like when you break it down even smaller, Republicans, like, I got bad news for you guys. You got a problem with women. Like, you don't cater to women. So there's no chance she makes it. No chance.
I'm going to push back on that as someone who's not a Republican. Republicans actually were able to flip House seats, as I was talking about earlier, and they ran women candidates in these House seats that defeated men who were Democrats.
might
in,
be
se-
locally?
in several places along the country. So, I mean,
Has there ever been? I don't think there's even been a single Republican person to make it to a debate, a woman to make it to a debate.
Carlina, I forget what her last name was, but she was in the debate. I mean, Michelle Bachmann was in the debates in 2012. Sarah Palin was the vice presidential candidate.
Sarah Palin. There we go. She made vice president, right? She was going to be vice president. But she didn't.
I mean, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. I think your theory's flawed.
Hillary Clinton is a Democrat. I'm talking about Democrats. Like, Republicans don't nominate women in the president. I don't think a single Republican woman has ever been nominated.
I mean, there hasn't been, but I mean, this
is what I mean.
Times are changing.
Maybe. I hope so. This is the truth. The truth is that, like, right now, the support for Republican women is not high. It's just the truth. Like, I hope it doesn't sound bigoted, because it's just the truth. Like, we don't. Republicans just don't. Women don't vote Republican either. Like, the percentage of women that vote Republican is so much smaller than Democratic, right? So maybe this is something you can take from Republicans. Maybe you can learn that, like, women just, for some reason, your party and women don't go together. I don't know. Like, maybe
I mean, that's true currently, but women actually voted for Republicans more this time than they did last time, percentage-wise. Sorry, I just got too many facts for you, Lloyd. Sorry.
No, I haven't checked this at all. I'm not like, let me see percentage here.
I've been absorbing too much like media coverage of the elections the last couple days.
Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Women are actually doing a lot better in the Republican Party than they did last time.
Kind of Latinos voted for Trump. I've been all into that.
Let's see. So, like, yeah, currently, based on, this was in 2019, 2020, 18 and 19, 38% women voted Republican, 56% voted Democrat. So, like, you're talking about a margin of, like, what, over 20%? Like, for whatever reason, the Republican Party does not cater to women. If you go to men, 42% Democrat, 50% Republican. More men vote Republican, right? Like,
But I think that has to do some with their politics. They've been becoming more Tea Party and more evangelical and Old Testament-esque, and I think that scares a lot of women Because just like in Sharia law, if you look at like Old Testament law, and if we had to adhere to that, it's very, very like
Anti-woman.
And yeah.
Yeah. And another thing, like I said, I'm not trying to like bring up something that's not true. Like black people don't vote Republican. Like,
It's true.
I got
And
bad
like,
news for you guys.
like they voted a lot for Republicans this year comparatively.
If you took out like white males, we never have a Republican again. It would never happen again.
Well, I mean, in South Carolina, there is a black conservative senator, and he's constantly been defeating white Democratic challengers.
Well, that's not unheard
There
of.
are exceptions.
I'm just saying, we got to point out both sides here. I don't think it's a good idea to only present one side of the argument.
I think that I'm only presenting one side of the argument because it's like unequivocally the truth. I think black male vote for Trump was like 11% in 2016 or something, and for women it was like 3 or 4%. Don't quote me on that again.
Ben Carson ran for president.
There are exceptions.
And so did Herman Cain.
You guys are bringing up the very, very few exceptions. Like it's not. Let me pull it up here. All right, here we go. I want you to guess in 2019, 2018, what the black Republican vote was.
I mean, in a midterm year, that's not really a fair thing to pull up.
Okay, pick a year. Pick a year from 2000 all the way to 2019.
Well, in 2016, I know that the black vote was 6% for Donald Trump, which he was pretty
7%,
happy about. Yeah, because he was pretty happy about it,
6.7%.
because I think Romney only got like 4% in 2012. So
What do you think is 2012? 7%. 28 to 2008, 6%. Like not a single year. I think actually in 2019 it was 10%, highest ever. Like 10%. You're gonna call that? You're gonna tell me that's not the one side of the argument? Like
it's not about it being one side of the argument. It's the fact that in the past they were not reaching out to people of color and to women, and recently they've been realizing their deficit in those areas and that they're trying to change that now. So to sit back and to assume that Democrats will always vote, a certain way, or Republicans will always vote a certain way, is just not really logical, because these things are constantly shifting, they're constantly changing. I mean,
I agree. That's actually my point. I want to reach out to Republicans and like look at your vote percentage for black people. You're not getting them. Look at the vote percentage of women. You're not getting those votes. You got to figure out why that is, and you got to do something about it. That's what I'm saying.
But I mean, do they really? They've been winning off of the fact that white men vote at a higher rate.
actually, less white men voted for President Trump this time than in 2016.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I believe it.
It was actually the only demographic group that he did worse in this time. He actually did better in every demographic group this time around than last time, except for white men. He actually got more white vote than any Republican president has gotten since Eisenhower.
That's impressive.
That is impressive. It's very impressive. Like,
Yeah, his Latino vote share went up from
crazy.
28% to 35%.
See, that's what I've been looking at. That is just crazy to me.
honestly, that makes sense to me. That makes
Cubans.
sense.
A lot of Cubans.
Well, it
Latinos
sounds
are
like the
conservative.
Republicans were running more like Spanish English ads down in Florida, and the Democrats just didn't even catch up until like early September. They just, and
He
so I
also
mean,
ran on the thing of anti-socialism. And a lot
Right.
of people came from socialistic countries, and they don't understand the difference between socialism that they went through and a social democracy. So they're looking at it, and they're living in fear that they fled, made it here, and they're going to end up right where they came from.
it was probably the only place in the country where that whole socialism sucks argument was actually really, really working.
Yeah.
Florida.
Yes.
Mhm.
The Cuban Americans in Florida, I mean, that was probably scaring the hell out of them.
Yeah,
which probably
that's
shows
the
why
Latino vote was-
Republicans actually picked up a House seat in Miami, which
Yep.
is supposed to be a Democratic stronghold.
That's actually a good point. We could do for another podcast. Would be like the difference between socialism, like the different types of socialism. It's not socialism's not a one thing. It's a spectrum, right? Like
Yep.
and I don't want to I'm not going to tell you that it's good or bad. You decide if it's good or bad. But
Yeah.
this idea that socialism is communism is silly. It's not. They're different.
Well, a
Like,
friend of mine, Christopher Tracy, and we did a capitalism versus socialism episode on my podcast, so feel free to check that out, everyone.
it's kind of the same with capitalism too. We don't have true capitalism. You never have. Not
Yeah.
one time ever in history.
We've never had
true
true socialism either, but we call these things capitalism and socialism, so...
It's just like people are just so misinformed on that, and they get to vote too when they turn 18. No shit.
That's big fear words that are perpetuated. I mean, if you actually look back, Karl Marx wasn't a communist. He literally was a scholar who wrote a whole book and studied communism, put all that out, and everybody still thinks Karl Marx is a diehard communist.
And I don't know why you bring up Karl Marx. Like, why is he irrelevant in 2020?
No, my whole point is these are perpetuated like lies. Is my point is like people have become so ingrained and people hear it so much that they're like, this is fact, this is what's going on. We are a capitalistic society and we're going to become a socialistic society and we're going to have a dictator and we're all going to die.
We just kind of.
Well, that's cause pushing back on what
not you.
Hunter
I'm
was saying
arguing you.
earlier.
I'm arguing at everyone. Like, we already have a dictator. We've had one for years.
Hunter was saying earlier that we shouldn't have uneducated people voting. I'm like, there's like millions of people who believe that every single Democrat is a pedophile.
Yep.
So I mean, like, we're already at a point where everyone is uneducated about voting. If everyone believes that if you're a Democrat, you're a pedophile, or that Trump was here to save America and QAnon is a real thing.
That's a good one.
I mean, these are people who were voted in this election. So I mean, they're completely convinced that Trump is in the White House trying to fight for the rights of every Christian.
Conspiracy theories is like, gosh, I wish Hunter was still on here and we could talk to him about this. Is that some of them like end up being true, whatever, but some of them are just like so harmful and lead to riots. They lead to death threats. They lead to people having to move, and it's just like. They get so perpetuated that they become ingrained, just like the Karl Marx thing, and they do become dangerous, and people start taking them as fact. And
well, they make their way on the ballots too. That's the thing. Like, people vote with that in mind, with some of these theories that are just blatantly wrong. And again, people on my timeline, on Facebook, they are logical people all the time, right? If I give them $100, they'll spend that $100 well. But when it comes to some crazy things about like. Conspiracies and QAnon and pedophile, and it's like they just have these wildly just off the wall and from a normally sane person.
Exactly, because these are smart people, they're educated people, they're people I've known, some of them since elementary school, and I know they're rational, and I know that at baseline they want what's best for the country, but they just buy into it, and it happens on both sides.
Well, I guess if we've all watched the Social Dilemma recently on Netflix, we all know that like our social media bubbles are tailored to us. So if you feed into that, if you click like on something, if you engage in a photo, then the algorithm spits more of it to you. And so the next thing you know, you have nothing but QAnon in your algorithm constantly. And that's all you ever see.
That happens to me, but there's me who's overcritical of everything. Like when I saw Steve Bannon said that Fauci should be decapitated and propped up on a pole, I'm like, he did not say that. That's what I do every time. Trump said this, Trump did not say that. And I look it up, I watch the videos.
But most people don't do that.
I know they don't, and it really hurts me because like I believe in freedom. Freedom is like one of my big things that I am for. Freedom of speech, freedom to protest, all of that is like crucially important to me, and I believe everybody has those rights. But they're getting so dangerous that it's just like wearing on me, because like I know there's nothing you can do, and I know people have the rights, but it's the fact that such a portion of people are buying into this.
Right, so that's the real question I want to ask everybody. Do you think it's a good thing that Twitter's been censoring Trump as much as they have been?
Yes, 100%.
I agree, because they are a business, which I actually felt differently. They're a business. They have the right because they know what they're perpetuating. Frankly, they open themselves up to a lawsuit if they let people tell lies and something bad happens because of those lies. I'm not saying they're going to win that lawsuit, but that could tie them up in court, Like, it's just
Twitter.
a move.
They're damned if they do, damned if they don't. So, right? Because if they don't do anything about it, they get sued, right? They get sued. Fake news. People call them fake. If they censor, you're censoring people. Like, you can't have it both ways, right? So, in my opinion, like, I know we had at one point newspapers were the way you got your news, right? And or mainstream TV. That was what's the term? Editing. Like you. If I want to write an article and I submit to the New York Times, they have to approve of it. They'll edit the document. They accept responsibility for it being printed, publicated, and then they put it out, right? Anything that happens negative from that gets backlash to them, right? Twitter, Facebook, they don't have that ability. It's not possible for Twitter to verify however bajillion posts they get. It's just not possible. So to be mad that they're censoring people when we've been censoring the entire time. News has always been censored. I got bad news for you. They have to do it. Sorry, like they're not publishers.
Just like when they made it illegal to bring the war to your living room because we had all those riots and protests about the war. And they stopped playing it on TV.
Wow. When was this? This is Vietnam.
70s.
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
I just
So, I mean, I think, I'm over here trying to like play my role as devil's advocate all of a sudden. The right claims that the censorship is one direction. Do you
That's a
guys
good
see it
point.
that way?
sometimes I do think there's a valid argument to be made because I do see a lot of very inflammatory things from left people, and it doesn't get censored. But at the same time, you see very mild things from right-wing people get censored. So I've seen some pretty inflammatory things from left people not get censored.
Because here's my question, right? I've been watching a lot of CNN and Fox News recently because I just felt like it was good to get both perspectives on what's been happening in this election.
Yeah.
And in the last few days, CNN has repeatedly bashed Trump for saying that he's won this election. And then Biden would come on and say, we are going to win this election, and that was okay. And I'm just like, is a tense that big of a deal?
See,
I mean, is it? I mean, that's a question I want to know because Twitter censored Trump for saying we won this election.
because I agree, for like the mild stuff, for sure, for like the stuff like that, the Republicans by far get censored a lot more, it seems like. But when it comes to really inflammatory stuff, like really, really inflammatory stuff that's actually a danger to public health, like that's the kind of stuff that I see being majorly censored. But I do think more of it is geared towards the right.
I think a part of it too is a lot of left policy, or I don't know how to say it, like left ideology is very opinion based, right? It's not anti-factual. It's just like opinion. Like you can't argue. You can't just fact check it. I mean,
Value,
go ahead.
value and morality based.
Yeah, it's like very subjectional. Whereas like a lot of the right-based stuff is objectional. Like if you say something like "I've won the election," that is objectively wrong.
Or you've done worse for the economy, and those things are blatant lies, where the liberals come out with, well, we've created a better quality of life and stuff like that.
Yeah, how do you measure that? You can't. It's hard to measure that. It's very, very hard. Whereas like if Trump says, what did he say the other day? Fraud. They threw out all these ballots. That didn't happen. That's just not true. Like,
Yeah.
you can just fact check that.
Or if it is true, present evidence.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think the right gets fact checked more or censored more because a lot of it's just wrong, right? Whereas the left, sure, it's a lie. We all know it's a lie, but you can't just prove it as a lie. It's just a
Most of the stuff I also see is just like misusing Trump's quotes. That's probably the number one thing that's why I fact check the crap out of anything Trump says or anybody does. Like that whole who was it? Was it Trump Jr. or Eric who allegedly got all those ballots and took photos and burned them, stuff like that. I always like fact check the crap out of it because one of the number one things I see the left side lie is by misusing other people's words or situations.
I think one of the things I saw recently was the head of the Border Patrol said that we are continuing to build the wall. We've built X amounts of the wall recently. We're building the wall because walls work, and that was censored by Twitter.
Yeah, that definitely is. That's not good. I wouldn't agree with that.
That's not even like detrimental to anything. Like I could understand when they were taking stuff that was COVID related, like they were just blatant lies that people are like promoting, and they're like, no, don't listen to that because that's a public health issue. That affects everybody, and actually, like the people who live get sick, increases our morbidity and mortality, which hurts our economy. But like the wall, really, who cares? Let them lie away. They can fact check that. If they don't,
Well, I have a question for you, Desmond. Here, question: do you think this is more of a Trump thing? Because I know Trump gets censored all the time. But what about other prominent conservatives? I haven't really done much research on this. I know Trump gets censored, but what about like other prominent conservatives? Do they get censored as well? Because I don't see it happening much.
I don't think there's really as much blatant lying that goes on outside of Trump. I mean, even the people closest to Trump don't lie on the level that Trump does. I mean,
has Mike Pence ever been censored? I don't think he ever.
No,
has.
but Mike Pence, even on election nights, when Trump came out and said, we won this state, we won that state, we won this state, he said, Mike Pence, would you like to say a few words? Mike Pence walked up to the podium and was like, we're really confident about all of these states. Like, it's just the simple things.
Well, that's not been. Even with like Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham, when they're asked about stuff, most of the time they say no comment. Like they actually won't comment on it when they know it's a lie. So I think that is damaging because they should be when it's like a harmful lie saying something. But I think since they're not really lying at that rate, that they're going to the same rate.
I think it's a Trump problem for this reason, right? You have the press secretary of the White House basically like say the same thing Trump does in a better way, right? Like they defend him for whatever he says. They have to. It's their job, right? So he says something that gets fact checked and censored. Well, the secretary comes on there, says the same thing in a very less inflammatory way. It doesn't get fact checked. It doesn't get censored. I think it's just like you can, like I said, that the lie versus the subjectional truth. So we're getting close to the end here. Any kind of closing thoughts? Do you think we're going to be in a better place in 4 years?
I mean, I have lots of closing thoughts. We could definitely pick this up, I mean, in a week and have plenty more to say. But as far as one closing thought in particular that I would love to talk about is the fact that I want everyone to know that I was a proud, member of Southeastern Pennsylvania today. Because as Pennsylvania was officially called, all I could think about was Trump saying in that first debate, bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I feel like the people of Philadelphia took that personally, and I'm glad they did. Because I'm not going to make any misinformation here. I was glad that Trump lost, personally. So.
Any closing thoughts, Courtney?
I actually agree. My election to me this year was more about Trump losing than Biden winning.
100%.
When Biden started winning, I felt a lot anxious. I felt better, and then I thought about it, and I actually just kind of felt crappy again because I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. If something happens, with Kamala, who she's done some questionable things, especially for people with like crimes related to drugs, and it's just like I can't even be excited about this election, and I was for like 10 seconds, but I am substantially more excited just that he lost.
Yeah, this has zero to do with Biden winning. Biden is a phantom. I have no faith in him. He is going to be probably utterly useless as a leader. I was literally just 100% concerned with Trump being gone. And
any other candidate would have won. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyone
yeah, just any human being besides Trump 2020. That was my slogan.
I do want to add on to your thing about Pennsylvania. Arizona, right? The ghost of John McCain. I'm unpopular opinion. I kind of like John McCain. Like I wouldn't have voted for him over Obama, but like I like him, man. He was a good dude, in my opinion.
He was a good person. No, he was. Whether you agree with him as or not, but he took his job seriously. He took his platform seriously.
Yep, lived by his morals. He was a good guy. And so his ghost came back and got him. Love it. Got him.
Arizona went blue for the first time since the Eisenhower administration.
John McCain, baby. That's the reason why. You can't talk crap on him, and that's not how it works, buddy. So, anyway, we'll wrap this up. Desmond, podcast.
Independent Thought is the name of the podcast. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter, preferably Instagram. I spend more time on there. The podcast itself can be found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Come check us out. Taking a quick hiatus, and we'll be back in a few weeks for the start of season 3.
Courtney, any closing thoughts? Any plugs?
No, I have nothing but an Instagram for my dogs. I'm pretty lame. So
that's all right. She actually got censored by Instagram. So
I
censoring on the left.
All the photos.
Too much liking of the dogs.
But I found out.
You know what? There it is. Yeah, censorship of the left.
Followers. So see, I'm on a roll. I'm just getting followers. That's what I'm really doing.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up. Shout out to Kimberly. You're live in chat. Always Brian. Thanks for Patrick, James, Colin. I saw all the comments. I'm not gonna scroll all the way up, but appreciate you guys. If you guys do want me to mention anything, you can just explicitly tell me. I can see it here, and I will plug. As long as it's not inflammatory, I will mention it and bring it up with the group. We can discuss it. So,
hey, just for the final thing to anyone who's listening to this, if you guys have any future topics you want us to talk about in future episodes, post them in this chat, and we'll bring them up in the next episode.
Also, there is a group, Lip Service Podcast group. If you join that podcast group, you can post polls. You can do all kinds of cool stuff, right? So that's kind of how we get our good topics. We haven't done one recently, but we'll probably pick that back up because it was really working, in my opinion. So, all right, thanks, guys, and see you guys next one. Let's pause this so I